Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to our City Church event that we're calling Meet Someone Interesting, where we get to know a member of the City Church community who you might not know. Hopefully someday you will be able to know in person again, and I hope that it's in the not too distant future when we gather together again at the Russian Center. If you don't know me, my name is Stephen Gunlock. I'm the pastor of congregational and group life here at City Church, and I'm really excited today to have Paul Voge with me. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Paul, along with his wife and business partner, Maddie, are the founders of Aura Bora Herbal Sparkling Water, which I am drinking right now in its cactus rose variety. And I can honestly attest, I've not been big on the whole sparkling water craze of the last few years. When I tasted this, my first thought was, this is different. Like, this is not like other things I've had. This tastes like something that's been made with care. It tastes like something that you could make at home. It tastes very just natural and exactly like it says it. Exactly like it says it is. So.
Awesome.
So yeah, this might be, you might say this is the first sparkling water product that I've been truly taken by, but that's no joke. I really, really, really like it. And so we'll talk tonight in our conversation. We might run in a few different directions. We're going to talk about the product. We're going to talk about the story of Aura Bora. And I think as we do that, hopefully we'll move into some territory too of talking about what it means to still, do big things, to make big life changes and moves, to take risks during the chaos of the past 6 months that we're still not anywhere near out of. So in some sense, I hope that we land in a place of talking about how do you, continue to live your life and live well, even amidst the pretty extreme constraints that we're living under. So I first met Paul and Maddie shortly after they moved to SF. I think it was about probably almost exactly a year ago at the Tuesday dinner party at Jason Morell's house. So we also have Jason here with us.
Hello, everyone.
I'm
going to be fielding your questions. I already see some Cactus Rose being drunk on the chat. Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
People are drinking to drink.
Yeah,
it's happening,
no,
everyone.
It's special.
It's like a commercial. I love it here.
Yeah, this is maybe you can like reuse this as like a 40-minute commercial. But Jason, also, if you don't know, is a fantastic chef. Those of us who are accustomed to eating his cooking on a regular basis have been missing that the last 6 months. But all that was to say, we met Paul and Maddie originally at the Tuesday dinner party event, which Jason hosts. It's a bi-weekly dinner party, exactly like it says, for people who are new to City Church. And that's, again, something that I miss. I know that we look forward to starting again at some point. So again, Jason will be fielding your questions. You can go ahead and start sharing those questions. You can talk in the chats. And after we talk for a little bit, maybe in 20, 25 minutes or so, we'll start getting to those questions, but you can start sharing them now. And to get things going for you all watching, people on Facebook and YouTube or wherever else you might be, I'm going to give you a statement that you can talk amongst yourselves. You can respond back to. I won't see your response until way later, but I'm going to go ahead and make a statement to get things going. And that statement is an opinion of mine, but it's a very strongly felt opinion that LaCroix is just not very good. Take it or leave it. That's really how I feel. I hope no one watching this works for LaCroix.
There was one person though, and we could bring them in too. It's like when politicians call into news shows.
Yeah.
Just bring them right in.
It's like that old, what was it? Like when I was a kid, there's that Crossfire scene.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, we could just do that. The Battle of the Sparkling Waters. Okay, but I'm going to stop talking now for a little bit. I'm going to stop instigating controversy and turn my attention now to you, Paul. And to get us started, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit about your overall background. What led you down this path? What inspired you to dive into the sparkling water market?
Sure. I grew up in a large family outside New York. My mom was a bit of a health nut. So we definitely grew up in one of those homes that didn't have soda, or occasionally would buy those Hanson organic sodas as a little treat, like on someone's birthday. So always been a big sparkling water drinker, very different from a producer, obviously. And like a lot of young people, I was at a job where they had a well-stocked fridge. So 7 to 9 times a day, I'd get up, grab a can of LaCroix or Waterloo or Polar, whatever they had in there. And it was mostly just as a more interesting way of drinking water, and obviously no calories. Mostly I just kind of felt like it was a commodity. Like, okay, I'm not really enjoying this experience. I'm just kind of doing it. At that same time, my wife, Maddie, and I at home just started playing with our soda streams. We had some herbs and essential oils, which I later found out you're not supposed to drink, juice, kind of whatever we had in the house. And we'd make just crazy sparkling water concoctions.
Nice.
And shared them with friends, to be honest, just to start as a joke. Like, hey, look at this fun, herbal water we made. And enough of them liked it that we thought, all right, let's try to put this in cans and see if this can go somewhere.
Nice. Was there like a specific moment when you had that kind of sense of, oh, we could actually make this into like a thing, like something that we could put in people's hands?
I think I had a couple of, so obviously we shared it with friends, then I had a couple of friends of friends say, oh, wow, these are great sparkling water flavors. It'd be awesome if this was available commercially. Like, they almost said that exact sentence. And I'd always been a entrepreneurial person. So it felt like, okay, well, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and every entrepreneur needs a product or service or something that they're selling. And at the same time, I was working in finance at the time, not at all in consumer goods, but just coincidentally, or depending on your view of fate, I was in this project where we were buying a beverage distribution business. So for many days in a row, I was going to this huge warehouse filled with beverages and snacks. And I think I just previously had the idea that you had to be Coke or Pepsi or Dr. Pepper to make any money in the beverage world. But I was looking at this guy who imported drinks from Peru, and he had just kind of bizarre non-alcoholic drinks, and kind of thought, okay, maybe like the barrier to entry financially is lower than I think. So I think that was happening at work, and then at home we were having all this validation of a product we were making in our soda stream. So those two things combined kind of led to taking a big risk, which ironically at the time didn't feel like as big a risk because we were living in Denver, which was just a much cheaper cost of living. So I kind of, hey, I'll do this for a year, and if it goes nowhere, no problem, because we live in Denver. It's super cheap here. We can live on very little money. And then maybe a month after I quit my job, my wife, Maddie, got a job offer out here in the Bay Area, which was just kind of good comedic timing. But we've made it work.
Wow. Did you feel like when you decided to do that move, was it still full steam ahead, or was it like, maybe we'll pause this, or?
I definitely grabbed a couple of like side hustle type things, which I've always had like a few of those, going just for fun. This was more for sustenance. But I would say we got lucky in that San Francisco, LA, New York are probably like the 3 cities in the country where you could effectively launch a new beverage or snack business, because you can start distributing yourself. San Francisco is perfect. It's 47 square miles. I could distribute myself for a while. Denver would have been more challenging to do. So I'm glad it worked. So yeah, all that to say, we did go full steam ahead. At the same time, I was kind of creating contingency plans just in case we ran out of money.
Yeah. Well, I admire the courage in all of it. But thinking about that entrepreneurial impulse, you said like you started this in Denver, now you're in San Francisco, and we're living in a place where, at least for the past 50, 60, or maybe more years, there's like a strong entrepreneurial spirit. It's like in the air. And it's not just, tech, it's not even just business. I think you could look at cultural movements, spirituality, even old institutions like a church, you might say, that are constantly in a state of openness to change as part of being in this place. And so with that in mind, I'm like curious, like what has this desire to create something new that's your own been like what inspires that, what drives that, for you?
I think it's some piece of it is probably creativity of, wow, it's so fun to just put something out into the world that previously there was nothing, and then all of a sudden there was something, which, certainly there's something innately human there, biblical, of we're all made to create something. Doesn't physically need to be in an aluminum can on a shelf with a price tag, but that's this iteration of it anyway. But I would say what led me just to like entrepreneurial things in general was just kind of the interest in wearing a lot of hats, which I realize I'm wearing a hat now, so it's not that great a joke. But yeah, wearing a lot of hats, not having a boss, like those are all things that I think most entrepreneurs look forward to. I did have a good boss previous to this, so if he's watching, I'm not making fun of him. But yeah, I think all of that factors into it. Wanting to create something, wanting to be independent, wanting to do a bunch of different things each day.
That's awesome. And I'm also curious, like, doing this in San Francisco and being a relative newcomer to the city, when you're talking to people, do you ever say like, that you started a company or something like that, and they just assume that it's some sort of tech thing or an app or something like that, and then you're like, no, it's actually like something that I'm going to put in your hand right now and you can drink it. Like,
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I can put it in your hand and we'll issue an update every 2 months and email you about it, and you'll have to sign our terms of service. No, actually, funny, when I meet people in San Francisco, which is something I used to do, I haven't done that in many months.
Yeah.
But I usually just say I sell water, which always drives Maddie a little crazy because it's just kind of a confusing sentence. They're like, what do you mean you sell water? Like water for my sink? Do you work for, San Francisco Water Department? But I have had that reaction a couple of times of, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. If you're going to move here and be an entrepreneur, there's a much better way of doing that. You should create, a piece of software or, God forbid, hardware, but definitely not food or beverage. So that is kind of a fun piece of being in San Francisco, is that people are definitely far more open to new ideas. They can understand that.
Cool. Yeah. No, it is one of the wonderful things. It can get a little frustrating at times because there can just be a constant stream of newness, but it's also, pre-COVID, at least, it was not a place where you could ever get bored necessarily.
Totally.
I just saw it flashed on my screen, at least, that people can add their questions to the Google Doc. Jason, do you have anything more to add on that? I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. That's good. Okay. Yeah. Add your questions to the Google Doc that you should be able to see somewhere.
No, we will take your questions in the chat, and then I will give you them via the Google Doc.
Good. I'm glad that I spelled that out twice, and the second time was wrong.
We want to know, there's some comments already. We've got comment. LaCroix is Windows 95. Shout out. Shout out Craig Higgins. Hello from Rye, New York. Proud of that, Paul Voge. That's you.
Hello, Craig Higgins.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then folks would like to know what's on the hat, and then y'all can jump back in.
Yeah, this is actually one of our best grocery stores down in Southern California. We sell to a market called Seaside Market. So if we sell our product into a grocery store that has great merch, I usually buy the merch. So this has been a go-to hat of mine.
Awesome. Speaking of Windows 95, I just learned the other day that from someone on our staff that the Space Jam website from 1996 is still up.
Wow.
You want to go see an old website that you might have last seen when running Windows 95, go to I think it's spacejam.com or something. So moving along a little bit, I'm a little curious, like in terms of running your own company, what is most, I guess what's most fulfilling for you, and also like what is most challenging? And we'll leaving, just in general, we'll leave COVID for our next little set here.
Sure, yeah. I'll say fulfilling, just like the quick background is from June to December of 2019, so much was just like creating these products of what kind of aluminum can, where do we get the can, illustrations, ingredients, commercializing, like all of these things that I had no experience with. So what was ultimately very fulfilling was towards the end of 2019 of finally getting it onto store shelves. Was just like an amazing moment of, oh my gosh, this is like a real thing that people are, grabbing, buying, scanning at the cash register. And I'll say I get little, of course, like that has, I try to still feel kind of blessed and appreciative of that now. Like with each new store shelf we get on, it's still exciting. So that's definitely super fulfilling, as is, I'll say definitely the most fulfilling piece, and this is kind of an odd one. At the back of each can, there's a phone number with a 415 area code. That just rings on my cell phone, which I just did that because that's some kind of FDA rule. You need a phone number on every product. But it means like 2 or 3 times each week for the last 6 months, I just get a random call from someone in the country who like presumably just bought our product or is in the store thinking of buying it. And that's just been a great, particularly now during a time where I'm not meeting as many people, it's been awesome where they ring and I'm like, hello. And they're usually like, oh, sorry, I must have the wrong number. I just dialed a number on the back of my sparkling water can. And I'm like, no, you're talking to the right guy. This is great. So that's definitely the most fulfilling part.
Have any like interesting conversations come out of that, or are people just usually shocked that somebody actually picked up?
Yeah, about half the conversation is normally, wow, I can't believe a human being answered this phone. And then usually the second half is some either question about the product because they haven't bought it, or they just had it and had a great experience. There was a guy that I met. He was driving through Oregon. So I think there was a store that we're in, I think in Eureka, California. And he bought a can, turned around, went back and bought a case because he was going on a camping trip in Oregon. So he called and said, hey, like I saw this phone number on the can. I just wanted you to know that I just bought 12 individual cans and put them in a box and like I'm going to a camping trip. But it was great because I got his email address. Like we email every couple of weeks now because he orders off our website.
Wow.
Yeah, so a couple of new friends from that phone number.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Most challenging, I'll say, the most challenging, I think, is probably COVID related. So maybe I'll wait on that. But outside of COVID has just been managing all the details. It's with any startup, of course, like you don't really usually have the cash to hire a team. So you're usually doing things that you wouldn't normally be doing, usually late or with a few seconds to spare. So, which has been really fun in certain respects, but in other respects can be pretty stressful.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Going ahead and moving into the difficulty of the COVID era, I know for me in various ways, and I think for a lot of people during this time, it's felt like, especially the first few months, it just felt like this kind of hard stop on, huge portions of our lives. And, 6 months in, it still is a hard stop on large portions of our lives. Hence, the fact that we're even doing this not in person right now still and things like that. So I think it's just been a really easy time to genuinely be stuck and to feel stuck and to feel like we can't really like move forward on anything until this is over. And so I think it feels that way a lot, but I'm not sure that and I think that is true in many ways. I'm not sure that that's true in every area of our lives. And I'm just curious, for you, it's like almost, at least with launching this company, it's almost like the opposite, that you made this huge life move, risky move, putting yourself out there kind of move during this, stranger time than, any of us on this call have lived through. So I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts around, or your experience around, you're getting ready to launch this thing and the world kind of fell apart on you, but you're still doing it.
Yeah. So in January and February, I was, I'll say all of January, just driving my Subaru around the Bay Area, delivering seltzer. And then we got a distributor, a local one, at the end of January, which was great. But I was still kind of going store to store, meeting grocery managers, et cetera. And then the middle of March hit, and it was just absolute chaos. And there was definitely a feeling of, wow, this is I don't know, really trivial thing to be doing. I'm going to these grocery stores trying to get them to buy an herbal water when they're trying to put like toilet paper and flour and basic necessities on the shelf, which, no offense to herbal water, but doesn't exactly scream necessity. So there was this odd kind of, guilt is too strong a word, but feeling of like, oh man, what do I do now? Like, you know, one, we could have picked a better time to launch a consumer product. Two, how do we like partner with these grocery stores? Of course, I'm grateful in general because there was a world where we were going to try to launch just in food service locations. Like a lot of new food and beverage companies will do that.
Wow.
Fortunately, we didn't, obviously, because they all closed for many months.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would say it's been a mix. You know, we've been selling this product since January. So I've only been selling it for 2.5 months pre-COVID and now 6 months since. So I'm sure I'll probably relearn a lot of things I would have learned normally when all this ends, because I just haven't had that experience. But, you know, I used to sample, I used to pour out. Now it just sounds crazy to even imagine. But like I'd take a can and pour it into a small cup and hand it to someone so they could try the product. Of course, I don't do that anymore. Instead, I give them like a coupon or a whole can. But even that I couldn't do until recently because they didn't want extra people in grocery stores.
Man.
Yeah, so there was a lot of challenges. I mean, we could have timed this better, for sure.
What is that, you know, that question of we could have, or that thought of we could have timed this better? I know for me in certain areas of my life, and I hear from a lot of people, there's any new thing that we started to do right before this hit, there's that sense of like, I could have timed this better. How do you cope with that thought in your own mind? Because this is the time that you did it and you're doing it. You know?
Yeah, there's for all of you that have Nextdoor, you know, Nextdoor has been amazing the last few months, like just great content curated on Nextdoor. And someone in our neighborhood in Potrero Hill was talking about like, oh, you know, I used to garden in the community garden. Obviously, the community garden is now like very much closed, or maybe people have to reserve times. But he had a great comment where he was like, oh, no problem. I'll just wear my mask and go outside. Oh, I can't see anything outside because it's smoky, but it's 90 degrees and I don't have air conditioning, so I'm inside. I guess I'll just do nothing and hope not to die. So all that to say, like any struggles I've been experiencing trying to like grow and scale an herbal sparkling water company pale in comparison to a lot of other things that have been going on. So in the one respect, I think I'm somewhat in a ironic way, pretty grateful that, okay, you know, this is working. We're selling it into more and more stores every month. I don't really have much to complain about. I'm healthy and alive and my house didn't burn down. So that definitely, I think there's a world where this wasn't happening during COVID and I probably have a lot more complaints because of some of the challenges we've had, but they haven't felt like as much complaints. But I think another, you know, piece of timing is, yeah, we moved to San Francisco, you know, 5 months before a pandemic. We moved to a huge city. We were excited to meet more people. You know, obviously met you and Jason, which was great during that pre-COVID time. And I think a lot of young people in the city in particular are kind of just waiting, like, when will we get to socialize and meet people again?
Yeah.
So Aura Bora excluded, just in general, I think everyone's kind of thinking like, oh man, I wish this had happened to me at a different time in my life. I'm sure no one is happy about it, what time in their life this happened. Of course, this is a horrible thing to have happen, but yeah, well, you're launching a product and great. Not so much.
Yeah, well, I think though it's like really, really cool and encouraging and inspiring that you've continued to move forward though. And you're in how many grocery stores now?
Yeah, as of today, we're in 612.
Wow, that's amazing. And how many are those all in California or?
No, about 200 of those are in California. We're in about 120 stores in Northern California, about 80 in Southern California. And then the other 400 random pockets all around the country. So we got a national distributor in March and started selling through them in April or May, which has been great in some respects, and others just adds more complexity. But yeah, it's moving along.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And like, I would also just applaud, like, you know, you mentioned when you were starting out or early COVID, going into grocery stores in March and April with, we all remember the sort of disorienting empty shelves and things like that. I'm feeling like your product isn't essential. And while it isn't essential per se, I think there is something to be said, particularly in this era, about something around like small pleasures, things that are, either you putting your life energy into something that, this water doesn't need to taste like rose and prickly pear, but that makes me really happy.
Yeah.
It's also in a really pretty can. And that can provide a little bit of relief from this constant barrage of bad news that we are in, combined with, lacking a lot of our normal coping mechanisms, lacking some of our normal people. I just think it's a really cool thing to continue putting energy into something that can bring people a little bit of pleasure, a little bit of joy, even if it isn't essential, almost more so now than, in normal times. So I would applaud that.
No, I hope that's true. Obviously I spend a lot of time in grocery stores, but probably once a week I find like a new snack that I'm probably way more excited about during COVID than I would have been pre. Yeah.
It's almost like being a little kid again in some ways, to where it's like, this is my one thing.
Yes. Yes. This is when I get to go out and see people and things. Yeah.
To go to the store. Well, I think we can, I definitely have some more questions, and when Jason probably does, I think we can move into, if we have any questions from people watching, if we want to bring Jason back.
I'm back. I'm here.
Are you here?
I think I'm really wanting to know about the snacks. Tell us like 2 or 3 snacks that you're loving.
Yeah. So I skinny dipped almonds. It's going to sound like a very basic snack when I describe it, but it's an amazing snack. So obviously you've bought chocolate covered almonds probably your whole life. And usually there's like a 1/2 inch of chocolate and like a 1/2 inch of almond. And it's like this big kind of malt ball sized thing. These guys did an amazing job. It's an almond that is just a very thin layer, and they do amazing flavors. So they have this peanut butter chocolate almond that blows a Reese's peanut butter cup out of the water. That's my number one. Dang, that's actually another Bay Area food company. They were doing this sticky rice chip that I'm a huge fan of. Comes in like a turquoise bag. But if you thought you needed more chip alternatives, the sticky rice chip is kind of an insane texture. I'll say those are my 2 right now.
Do you have Aura Bora flavor pairings for each of those items?
Yeah, I do not. That's not a bad idea. I like that.
Make it happen. We have a few questions. Let's start with this one. Kind of piggybacking on challenges. What are the challenges of entrepreneuring as a married couple? What do you do? What does your wife do? So that's a question for you.
So I will say, so Maddie is in branding. She, the reason I'm able to do this like big risky thing, and both financially, is because Maddie has a great job and she works for a software company where she does a lot of copywriting, but works in their branding department in general. So she does pretty much all of our content, all of our writing, anything you are reading or looking at, or you think, wow, that was really clever. That was Maddie. So what has been, kind of a funny reverse thing during COVID has been, obviously I'm working on this full time. And then pre-COVID, I was just kind of getting like weekend hours and after work for Maddie to help me with things. During COVID, we wake up, there's no commute. She can help in the morning, help after work. So she definitely has a much more difficult life because she's like constantly switching between her actual paid job and her unpaid herbal sparkling water job that I'm sure a lot of the time she thinks like, this doesn't really make any sense for me to be helping you out, but I will anyway.
That answered one of our other questions about the Instagram content.
That's very much Maddie. Yes.
I've interacted a little bit with Maddie on your Instagram, giving some flavor ideas. So
good. I like it.
You appreciate the contact on Instagram, right?
Absolutely. No.
Yeah. We have another question, a great question that I don't think you've answered. Where did the name come from?
Ooh, okay. So yeah, I'll say at one point we had a long Excel spreadsheet with like 200 or 300 options on it. And we kind of course, we had the flavor pairings before then. So we were like, okay, we're using kind of odd ingredients. We'd like a name that kind of speaks to how peculiar the flavors are. And because we were using herbs, kind of wanted something with maybe connotations of the earth. So we went through a lot of kind of nature terms. And there was a word we really liked, aura. It kind of has some, I would say like hippie, crunchy connotation to it, which was nice. Totally impossible to trademark though. And then we also had a couple of earth terms about like Aurora Borealis. And it was like immediately, oh, this is so great. Aura Bora, it's going to rhyme. Maddie really liked that it was 4 letters on top of 4 letters. So you can do a lot there with the logo and branding. And there's a whole marketing school of thought to things that rhyme. So it was kind of a nice eureka moment of, oh my gosh, that's a great name. And then fortunately, the trademark attorney we hired said that worked too. So that's how it started.
That's awesome.
I think we got one more. And then I have a question I'll ask you after this one. How do you choose the flavors? Can you list them all from memory? That's like yeah. You have to be able to do that when you're answering the phone, right?
Of course, all of the time. Yeah.
And then, is there a personal favorite?
Sure. Okay, so I'll list them first. Lemongrass coconut, peppermint watermelon, lavender cucumber, basil berry, and cactus rose. Those are our 5 flavors as of now. We chose those from a much larger list of recipes that it was really fun to kind of product test. We product tested like probably 70 people, most of which were either friends or friends of friends, or in some instances, total strangers in that they were friends of friends of friends. And they filled out a survey, which one did they like, which they did not like. So there was kind of a nice iterative process there. But we wanted a few of them to kind of be more palatable, that, someone who's probably not from San Francisco, maybe not interested in an herbal drink, they might still know that peppermint watermelon are things they've heard of, or basil berry are things they've heard of. So those are kind of fastballs. But then you had more out there ones like lemongrass coconut and cactus rose. We wanted those to be kind of more curveball. So we wanted kind of an equal mix, that certain stores we knew flavors would sell better than others. So that is how we chose them. That is the flavors. I think the last question on that list should just disappear.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, okay. So I do have a favorite, and I've always struggled whether I should say this because I feel like that's kind of leading the witness for people that haven't tried it. But I'll say it just because it's funny that my favorite is my favorite by a long shot, and it is by far our worst seller. Like, it sells the least by a huge margin. So it just shows that my taste buds are not accurate, I guess. But my favorite is lemongrass coconut. I think it's a really nice pairing. It sells kind of okay in San Francisco, but in the middle of the country, it's our worst seller by an embarrassing margin.
Interesting.
They
just sound, lemon and coconut just sound so good together to me.
Do you have a personal favorite, Steven, yet?
It's definitely the cactus rose, which I'm drinking. I'll say it again. I'm drinking right now.
Nice.
And,
you've got another fan of lemongrass coconut in the Facebook chat.
I also love how amazing the artwork is on these cans. They're just very pretty and fun to look at, and they do have a little bit of that kind of hippie vibe that you mentioned with the aura part of the name, and it's just very, very, very pretty.
Is that an artist that you found, or you knew you wanted to work with? How did you create the label?
Yeah, it was anytime you have a new particular food and beverage product, you kind of have a million tiny billboards, out there on the shelf. We knew we'd have no marketing dollars for a long time, so kind of want to take advantage of that. So we really wanted something that was very different. Obviously, I mentioned it already, but most sparkling water companies are leaning into the fact that they're a commodity, and it purposely is branded such, like very plain. LaCroix kind of has a wacky branding that I can't really put my finger on, but most other water companies just take kind of a modest take. So we wanted it to really jump off the shelf, knowing that, okay, to sell it the first time for a new product, once someone grabs it, there's like a 60% chance they're going to put it in their cart. So we worked with a design firm in Colorado that we really knew and enjoyed, that Maddie had experience with in her past job. And they did an amazing job. So it was kind of fun to meet with them, tell them what we were imagining. We wanted something surreal and peculiar. And yeah, they did a great job.
That is great. I think we're good on questions. If you're watching at home and you have questions, you can type them in the chat. We're going to be wrapping up in a little bit. I think I'm really curious how you got from like the because you had the finance job,
yeah,
correct? So like
correct.
what were the deeper kind of things in that decision to kind of jump off of the ledge into starting this?
At the risk of sounding, I don't know, I think sometimes entrepreneurs like to really lean into the risk part. They're like, oh, I'm just a risky guy. I'm a risk taker. So I did it. Which the truth is, like, this is 2020. I was fortunate to grow up in a family where I went to college, and it wasn't actually that big a risk. As I mentioned, we were already living in Colorado and doing okay financially. So I'm tempted to answer that like, oh, I really just took the risk for riskiness sake. I think it had far more to do, and this is a far less interesting answer, but I think when you're kind of in school, you have this like routine and structure, and you're getting from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, the 10th grade to the 11th grade, college to after college. And then all of a sudden you're left and not really sure what to do. And you immediately go from having the most structure maybe of any generation ever to the least structure ever. So at first I was getting jobs that I thought were like important jobs to get, and some of them definitely taught me a lot. But I think I speak for a lot of millennials when I say like, oh man, this was not what I had in mind, was kind of how I felt. And with my last job, which I did really enjoy, there was some experience of feeling like I was doing the worst parts of being an entrepreneur without getting the best parts. So I would say kind of internally, it felt like, okay, I really feel like God made me to create something. Maybe it's not this herbal sparkling water company, but maybe the process of doing that will lead me into whatever that is. So I don't know. I think it was just a comfortability with knowing, hey, my worst case scenario is not that worst case of a scenario. It's not really that bad. And two, if this is how I feel most fulfilled, I think that's probably what I should try to do.
Yeah, that's great. We had another question come in actually. Sorry, let me find it. Oh, I want to come back to that, but how can we be a part of the next flavor tasting? You said you are going out tasting around
I like
town.
That. Yeah. So,
is this a recruitment video we're making for you now? Like you're recruiting staff? Yeah.
Yeah, just click the link below.
You could volunteer opportunity.
So we are developing a new flavor right now, and we're deciding between a couple. So that would be a fun thing to do. Members of City Church could give them a try.
Yeah.
I like that
idea. Any hints on the flavor?
I can say one of them involves ginger and one of them involves honeysuckle. So I know there are some Southerners in this church, so there's some honeysuckle fans for sure.
Nice. What is the? I think a lot about this with what you're doing in the scalable like action steps. You're working from home. Like, do you actually see this as an advantage? Like how quickly and rapidly you can move on various things throughout the company, as opposed to later in the year when you might be tempted to have an office space to have this. Is that what you're going to pursue? Or are you going to stay kind of mobile?
No, I think I'll definitely stay fairly mobile. There was a while in the first few months of the year we were making the product in Colorado. So I was flying to Colorado a lot during any production run. And then, of course, mostly selling in the Bay Area and a little bit in Colorado just for convenience sake. Now we kind of sell everywhere. So, of course, doesn't make fiscal sense to go all over the place. But the last couple of months, I've gone to Southern California 3 or 4 times because we're just starting to sell into Los Angeles pretty heavy. So no, to your point, yeah, I think it'll always be pretty mobile between traveling for selling and then going all over the city. Today we just launched in a grocery store called Draeger's. I'm sure a lot of people live near Draeger's. There's a few in the peninsula. I think there's one in the East Bay. So a lot of this like masked meeting grocery managers, like with my elbow kind of thing. So you're probably right that it's been an advantage in some respect because we've been able to be a little more nimble than we probably would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I think I don't see any more questions coming in. Steven, how do you feel?
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. This is a pretty good place to stop if you two feel that way.
The one thing that Paul and I haven't talked about is pizza, which we
You have a thing about that.
We have a thing for pizza. I think we connected, Paul, over New Haven.
I agree.
Because I spoke the language. You were like, this guy knows what's up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Explain more about
We'll save that for another Meet Someone Interesting. It's Meet Someone Interesting, the pizza panel. Just pizza lovers in the Bay Area.
So, Paul, will you come back for a pizza panel?
I'll come back, but if this meets someone, first of all, I'm glad it's called Meet Someone Interesting. If it was like Meet Someone Exciting, that would feel like a lot of pressure. Like I can be kind of like somewhere between tolerable and interesting all day. That's fine. But if this did anything, I hope that there's someone right now watching that makes pizza and they're like, oh, no problem. I'm a pizza maker, because that's what it should be, is all of us trying their pizza.
I love that. We can definitely make that happen.
Good.
I'm feeling some need for pizza now. I haven't had dinner yet.
Let's end this thing. Go meet for pizza.
And with that pizza, I will have more of this in the fridge. Can't honestly recommend it enough. But Paul, thanks so much for doing this with us. It's great to see you, to hear a little bit more of your story, to relate to it. Glad things are continuing to develop, that you're in so many stores, and just really excited to see what happens over the next couple months and years with this venture.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Steven. Thank you, Jason. This was fun. Good to see human beings again, and those that I'm normally with in person.
Yeah.
No, it's not being in person, but it's still fun. So, and thanks to those of you who watched this and participated. We're grateful for you. We will keep doing more things like this over the coming months. So if you have any ideas for it, let us know. But again, thank you, Paul. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jason, for managing this and getting it all set up and put out there. And I guess since this is kind of a show, we'll see you on our next episode of Meet Someone Interesting.
We forgot to use the sound effects. Can we end with the soda can opening? Okay, everyone, this is what it's going to sound like. Hold on, we got to turn up the volume. Okay, we end on this. See you next time.
All right. See you next time. Thanks.